Welcome to Deep Thought. Triggers tell you about yourself. Triggers tell you about yourself. I'm going to tell you something now. We all talk about what triggers us. Indeed, sometimes when somebody's trying to mess with you and you respond, they think they triggered you. No, they were probably just disrespectful or something. And plus, if you try to do it online, you don't see what's doing. You don't really know. But that's one thing. But let's think about something. We all got a trigger. We all got something. If something happens, it pisses us off that we'll respond to. You know? And one thing about the online thing, I see when certain people respond harshly to something I might have said or even try to go personal instead of talking about the issue. I'm like, oh, okay. Something I said really bothered them. And I don't take it personally. I actually don't take it personally if they try to come at me. Because you know when somebody get triggered, they'll go after the person who pulled the trigger, even if the person pulled it unknowingly. But here's the thing. That happens, okay. But instead of looking at that other person who might have did or said something, really unintentionally, look at yourself. And it's not saying that it's bad to be triggered. The trigger simply says, okay, there's something with you got to deal with. There's something with you that you need to deal with. And that's the key. That's the key. Triggers tell you about yourself. It says, okay, if I'm triggered by this, why am I triggered by this? That's the thing you need to ask yourself. What is it about what that person just did triggers me? Got me mad. You know, got me thinking a certain way. What is it about it? Because I ain't gonna lie, I got some triggers. I ain't gonna tell y'all. But I've actually did a lot of work to heal them because, and it was years ago, I noticed the whole thing about that. I said, okay, this person just did that. Why am I bothered by it? Like legitimately bothered. Why am I thinking about it constantly? And then like there was something happened. It wasn't online, but it was something that happened a few months ago. And Ron was triggered, like fighting mad triggered. But then I stopped and I said, okay, why did what this person did trigger me? They weren't doing anything vicious against me. What did they say? And then I started thinking about it more and more. I said, oh, this goes back to something that happened when I was a teenager. Something I dealt with. And I was thinking, oh, okay, so I work on it. Indeed, whenever some trigger, like somebody does something that provides a trigger, in my mind, I say a prayer thanking them. I say, okay, this person brought that. Why am I bothered by that? And then I look at the bigger picture because it'll go back. It usually goes back to something that happened to you before, you know, something that happened to you when you were young, some type of trauma. Then once you realize that, then you could do the work to heal that trauma. You can do the work, and it's not overnight, but at least you know where to start. You know what you need to work on. It's a mirror in a way. A trigger is a mirror in a way. And look, yeah, it could seem like a bad thing, but it's actually helpful. Indeed, actually, I've been that way all my life, though, because one thing my grandmother taught me, she said, if somebody tells you about yourself, even if you don't like it, pay attention. Pay attention. Use it to your advantage. And then once you do that, you know, you could get better. There's been many a times I've been triggered or somebody told me about myself, and then I go back and thank them. Many a time. Or they call me out on something. Many a time. And it's usually when they were doing it in a tough love manner. Because sometimes people will do something and, you know, they just trying to get at you. And you're like, hey, whatever. But the time to pay attention is when you feel something. When you feel something. Like, okay, what did this person do? Oh, okay. It goes back to this person. Sometimes it might go back to some abuse issue. Sometimes it might go back to when your mom neglected you or, you know, maybe the father wasn't there. You know? Why? You know, why does that bother you? You know, and then you say, oh, okay. And then, you know what, it ain't necessarily, you necessarily accept what's happened, accept it and such and say, oh, this is just how I am, or, oh, that's how I am. No, sometimes you like, oh, this is why. Okay, I understand now. Because a trigger can even tell you about something positive that's actually about you. Something positive that led to something else. You know? Like I'll share something about me because you know, so like on my main channel, I've said a few times. I say never tell me to do a video or use the word should with me. And then somebody would say, and that's a little trigger for me. And I know somebody will probably come on here and say should just to mess with me. I'll just delete them. But here's the thing with that. I thought about that one time. I was like, oh, you know what it was? That actually goes back to how I was as a child. That actually goes back to how I was as a child. And I don't know if you would call it trauma in that, but my mother was very loose with me. She wasn't bossy at all. I was a grown kid at 6. I was one of those grown kids at 6, so I'm not used to following. But then somebody would say, well, isn't that bad, you know, listening? It was like, well, yeah, it could be, but because of that, I'm in a place now where I run my own business, and I never liked following. I would do it just long enough to keep the peace, and even on jobs that I've had, whether it was in the government or whether it was in retail or at a gym, I actually worked best when I had managers who weren't bossy. Who tried, like the one time I had a manager who was trying to micromanage, had troubles with that job. The one time, and it was some back and forth. It's actually the only time in my life I've been fired from a job because I had a manager who was trying to micromanage, and I was bucking at every system, every single time. I was bucking it. But then when I had other jobs, regardless of where it was, where I was getting a lot of autonomy, I did very well. Indeed, on some jobs where it was normal to micromanage, they figured out, okay, we can't boss Rom around. You know, let's just say, okay, give him his assignments, his general assignments, let him do it the way he gonna do it, and we're good. You know? But that's me. That is me. So I figured that, you know? And like I said, it goes back to childhood, you know? It was, please. I was like 10 years old before I had, started living with my grandmother. She tried to tell me some stuff, you know? And we were butting heads the whole time. we butted heads like crazy. But that's because it wasn't in me to follow anybody, you know? So, you know. That's the thing. But it's a good point, though. Because of that, I'm not a follower at all. I do not submit, you know, and I always look for freedom. So it is what it is. But that told me about myself, you know. That told me. And so everybody should do that. Every time you trigger everything and especially if you know your trigger, say, hold up. Don't get mad somebody triggers you. Ask yourself, okay, what's this telling me about my own nature? And like I said, just like with the example I gave, it's not always bad. It's not always bad. But then you figure it out. Oh, okay. Boom. So anyway, that's all I have for now. I'll get back with you. Peace.